Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I hope everyone is well. I apologize, that last slide is actually out of date. We just had our Minds That Move Us Festival in Miami, so we'll make sure we update that for next time if you were wondering if you missed it or not. So my name is Liz. I work with COABE, and I'm happy to introduce you to today's sponsor. Her name is Jill Rosalick, and she is from English Discoveries, and I'm going to ask Jill if she would start sharing her screen, and she just has a short welcome for you.
Okay, are we up?
Yep, there we go.
All right, warmest greetings to everyone today. English Discoveries is very happy to be sponsoring its first OA webinar today. And the future is here, rising to higher expectations for ESOL instruction and students' outcomes, which is so timely and relevant right now. As we all move forward in our roles as ESL professionals, we are indeed being held to an ever-increasing expectation for our outcomes and data reporting, which can directly impact our funding sources. The rigorous and academic curriculum being offered by English Discoveries can help your program address these new instructional standards. Our English Discoveries is currently used by 2 million people in over 30 countries around the world. Our curriculum and platform is developed and supported by EduSoft, which is a subsidiary of ETS and a global leader in technology-based education for English learning. We serve all kinds of institutions, including government, corporate, and educational facilities, where our curriculum is successfully utilized with students from middle school through university levels. English Discoveries is a completely online curriculum. This means your students would have access to their accounts 24/7 from computers, laptops, tablets, Chromebooks, and even their smartphones. Our curriculum features 10 course levels and addresses all major modalities, including listening, reading, speaking, writing, grammar, and vocabulary. English Discoveries uses the very latest in multimedia learning technologies and targets a wide range of learning styles and abilities from literacy through advanced levels. Your students will find navigation to be very easy. It's just like most of the websites that they visit, and features touch-friendly toolbars, one-click navigation to their last lesson working on, and easy progress monitoring. As you will see within lessons, we also have support tools, including a floating toolbar that will assist the student with translations and practices and recording, easy to use menu tools, and always touch navigation throughout the program. Each unit is topic-based and provides activities to engage students in real-world scenarios and rigor to address college and career readiness building. It's ideal for distance, classroom, and blended instruction because of the fact that it is completely online. We have 25 different native language support languages and lots of other tools that you will find to be really effective in all applications. Our most recent curriculum updates have added 2 units at 9 different levels that directly address the skills needed to meet new college and career readiness standards. Each unit centers around a contemporary topic with real-world relevance. As in these new CCR skill building units, we integrate each of the language learning skill areas and steadily build those skills throughout the program. These lessons start at a basic level and take the student through 9 different levels all the way to advanced skill levels. In addition to our 2,000 hours of core curriculum, English Discoveries features a community site with even more language building exercises. All content on the community page is easily differentiated from basic to intermediate to advanced with just the click of a button. We feature 3 different vocabulary building games, that can be easily used with groups or individually, a large bank of talking idioms, and our exclusive English Discoveries magazine. The English Discoveries magazine provides you with 3 brand new articles on the first day of every month, which can be used for a wide range of applications, including project-based learning activities, writing prompts, class discussions, and more. Teachers and students have access to every article ever published by both date and publication topic by using our archival tools. We also have our career discovery units, which will allow students to research 65 different careers after taking an interest inventory to help guide their choices. These units also build the reading and research skills required for the CCR standards while helping the student to determine a career pathway. Our teacher management system will allow teachers to track and report all of their student progress, as well as tailor each curriculum offering for their students. That means you can tailor them for the class or the individual. We also provide lots of custom report opportunities, which will provide you with information on both classroom and proxy hours for tracking your attendance. English Discoveries offers a variety of licensing models to hopefully suit any program or budget. We feature individual license as well as 2 forms of concurrent licensing. And if you're interested in learning more, our website at www.englishdiscoveries.net provides you with some sample lessons. And we always welcome the opportunity to provide your agency, site, or school with a no-cost pilot. You can contact me, and I will make sure you have my email afterwards, and we would be happy to provide you with that pilot. English Discoveries is proud to be part of the Educational Testing Services family, the world's largest private educational assessment and research organization, and the creators of the TOEFL, the HiSET, the GRE, and the TOEIC tests. So at that, I'm going to send it back to you, Liz. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to share my screen now again and introduce today's speakers. So today, welcome to our webinar. It's called The Future is Here, Rising to Higher Expectations for ESOL Instruction and Student Outcomes. I know that this is a really important topic, and I really want to thank our 2 presenters, and I'm going to introduce them now. We have Sarah Lynn. Sarah Lynn is an ESOL teacher, teacher trainer, author, and curriculum design specialist in the Boston area. That's great. That's a wonderful, wonderfully informative bio in such a short little packing a punch there. So we're going to welcome Sarah in a moment. And then we also have with us Federico Salas Isnardi. He's a language educator, author, diversity trainer, social justice advocate, and consultant in Houston. So 2 wonderful presenters today, and I know that we're going to learn a lot from them, and I'm going to turn it over to them now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to have Sarah share her screen when she's ready, and I'll have them hop on and say hello.
Well, hello, Sarah.
Hello. Hold on a second.
Well, hello, everybody, while Sarah launches her video. Glad to be here. I see a number of people, more than 140 people. Hey, Sarah, there you are.
Here I am. Hi. I just wanted to get the right piece up.
Sure, take your time. So we have a lot of people from everywhere. I've been saying hello to everyone over in the chat. I'm gonna be down in North Carolina actually at the state conference presenting for a Google Boot Camp. So that's gonna be really fun. So North Carolina folks, hope to see you there. All right, so I'm gonna be quiet now and let our presenters go ahead.
Okay. So Sarah, you are going to advance the slides for me?
Yes, I will be advancing the slides. I'm going to stop my video and mute, but I'll advance my slides.
Okay, very quickly then. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to see that many people with us today. Welcome to The Future is Here. We are going to talk about how to rise to higher expectations in ESOL instruction and get to higher adult education student outcomes. Next. So we will attempt to answer two questions. One is how the standards in adult education have changed. And second, how we can rise to those expectations that have been set now by the change in adult education environment. In our general English language classes, we are going to show you how one particular series, the Future English series, that Sarah and I co-authored with our colleagues, how we have attempted to help rise to these new expectations. Next. So how have the standards changed? Let's look at that. Next. As you probably know, most of you know anyway, in 2014, the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act redefined adult education. It changed adult education from what we have done for many years. Those of you who have been teaching for a long time may remember. We used to teach language and hope that as the students learned some language for whatever purpose they had, they would make progress and leave our classroom, and most of the time, we never saw them again. The WIOA expectations change a little bit our focus, well, significantly, not just a little bit, and place priority on workforce development, on civics education, and academic readiness. It's important to realize that as we refocus our attention on workforce and on civics and on academic readiness, one of the things that we need to do is integrate employability skills, integrate academic language, and integrate civics and basic language skills at the same time, and help our students meet their goals and help them get started along career paths and along a path where they know that this is the first step. And this concept of looking at adult education as moving through specific steps, delivered steps, is a concept that we will go back to in just a moment when Sarah talks about scaffolding. Finally, another redefinition of adult education is the integration of technology into our instruction. It used to be the case that the technology was pretty much optional. We used technology to teach, but did not teach technology itself. Now technology must be completely integrated into what we are doing. The world has changed significantly, so we are focusing on integrating technology. Sarah, next. So let's look at today's standards. We have college and career readiness standards. That is the academic skills needed for academic success, the academic skills, the language, for example, that students need to achieve career and academic success. We have the English language proficiency skills. So if the CCRS sets what the academic skills are that are needed for academic success, the ELPSs help us determine or define the language needed so that the students will achieve those CCRS standards. Next, we have IEL Civics. That is the integrated English language and civics, which is contextualized English instruction in the context of civics instruction. And all of these together are the high expectations set out by WIOA. Next. Now, one of the topics that, or one of the words that we hear a lot nowadays in adult education is rigor. Our classrooms need to have more academic rigor. We have to, as teachers, we need to have more rigorous instruction. So what is rigorous instruction? As you see this beautiful Venn diagram, 3 circles that are intersecting, we have the 3 things that we need to teach in order to achieve rigor. One of them is academic language. Now, we have always taught academic language. We know to teach the language for students to access formal interactions, whether they be spoken or written, whether they are contextually in school or at work or for whatever they want to accomplish in the community. This is the language that we have always taught. Then we have language strategies. Given the language that we have always taught, what strategies, what activities do we use to access and understand the language that we are teaching? I like to remember the idea that we are, as teachers, pulling an activity, pulling a strategy out of our trick bag. We have always done this. Identify the language and then identify an activity or a language strategy that we want to use. However, if we are really going to be successful in establishing rigor, what we also need is critical thinking. And critical thinking is the third and perhaps most important component of rigor, which is, okay, here we have the language that we are teaching. And yes, we have strategies, we have always done that. But what is the context that we have the student use the language in? What do we have the students do with the language? Do we have them evaluate information? Or do we have them solve problems? Do we have them analyze relationships, for example? So that it's not about just language instruction and an activity to learn the language, but rather once you learn the language, what are you using it for? And you will see that in future, we have, I think, accomplished this rigorous instruction by focusing a lot on those skills that the CCRS set out as the important critical thinking skills, the analyzing, the predicting, the showing, the relationships that there are between different aspects of the academic language and the strategies that they are learning. I think that the next years, Sarah will show you now how we can rise to those higher expectations in our language classes using Future. Thank you.
Thank you, Federico. Yeah, so now that we're in a landscape in which we really need to produce outcomes and engage our students in more challenging tasks, there's a bit of a question: how do we go about doing that? The reason our students are in adult education in the United States is often because they need some background, developmental skills. Often we're involved in developmental education and developing formal learning skills. So now we have this new overlay where the standards are even higher, and it's strenuous. It's strenuous for us as educators, and it's strenuous for our teachers, for our students. Oops, I need to use this. Okay. So what I'd like to show you is just a little graphic I put together. I feel, establish high expectations. Okay, we all know that. We've all got our states have interpreted the CCRS, the ELPs, and we obviously are funded via WIOA, so we recognize these are the standards, but how do we actually speak to them and how do we bring them into our classrooms? And I think a piece that sometimes gets missed is the question of scaffolding. Basically, we can establish high standards, but if we don't have the structure integrated into the way that we're approaching these high standards, we will not be able to bring the students up to achieve those higher outcomes. So what I'm going to do for the next 15 minutes or so is just really take you through parts of Future. In our second edition, we had the opportunity to reinvigorate and raise expectations a little bit more, and also reveal some of the scaffolding and how it can bring students up to a higher level, a higher outcome. The most important part, it's the part that's kind of baked into the cake, is the instructional design. Okay, so I like this image. I just got this image, and I really like it because it shows scaffolding in the way that we're talking about it, and we'll be talking about it in this hour. The notion of scaffolding is that you have a structure in place that allows everyone to enter into it at their level and move up. It's kind of like the zone of proximal development in a way, but being able to do it for everyone in the classroom. Now, to do that, you need to have a basic notion that everything you're teaching is going to be moving towards an outcome. The first thing we need to do, always, because learning begins with a learner, and so we always need to start with understanding what the student knows. So in every single lesson in this series, we always ask, the first thing is, what does the student know? What knowledge can this adult learner who has so much experience bring to the classroom? And once we've been able to assess that as instructors, we can go on to introduce new information. The third step is also something that I've learned a lot because I've been very interested in cognitive science and learning, is the importance of practice, and the importance of practice through multiple modalities. And also variation in practice, both for individual and social learning. So every lesson that we have is structured with these 4 parts of start with the student knows, introduce new information, provide multiple opportunities for varied practice, and then lastly, the 4th kind of culminating step is to require students, before they move on to another lesson, is to synthesize what they've learned and not keep the context just on a book page, and not just in the curriculum, but to extend the learning to their own context. So basically to connect text to world, or connect their learning to their knowledge of the world. So I'm going to take you through a lesson here. Let me see where that is. I'm going to actually go ahead here. Here, this is the first lesson in a unit, and I'm going to show you, I talked about 4 parts, right? The instructional design, the 4 parts of instructional design. Well, hey, the first part is look at the pictures. What do you see? Where are the jobs? So the first question always is, what do your students know? We've arranged the pages so that this side, you do not actually, I have my students cover the word, so they really have to look at the pictures and talk about what they know. I want them to bring their knowledge to the class first. And then when I know how much, maybe they know most of these words, good, we'll move on into the next stage, which is going to be introducing any other information that they may need. One thing that we've done with Future is we've tried to provide information +1. So the pages are rich with information so every student can move a little further in their learning. After we have first step, what does the student know? Then we introduce new information, and then I gotta get down here. We go into varied practice, okay? And here, often a lot of the curriculum we have in Future does rely, or really kind of exhorts students to cooperate and collaborate. In these 2 activities, both of them are collaborative learning activities. Usually, we will also have a part of a lesson, you'll see it soon, that students work individually. The last step that we have, and is a signature step, I think, in this curriculum, and something I've been very very proud of, is we ask students to synthesize and extend their learning. If you look at this is a level 1 book, so this is beginning level. But we break it down to 3 steps: talk about it, present it, and write about it. The idea is that the students are going to use this vocabulary and then start to express themselves about their world and their experiences using the targeted learning. But I also want to look at this in a slightly different way. It's not just the instructional design. It's not just the 4 steps and that every lesson moves through those 4 steps to a concrete learning outcome. It's also, there are other ways to establish high expectations from the start. I think establishing clear goals and measurable outcomes is essential. Over the years as a teacher, I've become more and more interested in learner autonomy and responsibility towards learning. And if learners don't know what they are aiming for and where they're going and what they're going to be able to do, and then if they're not able to assess that they have actually achieved what the objective of the lesson was, then we lose their motivation, and we lose their sense of direction in their learning journey. So we establish clear goals, and I'll show you how we do that. We expose students to academic language. That's something that's happened with this new revision, is to really think about what are the different academic strategies, language strategies that we're having students employ when they're learning the language. And we try to highlight those more. As always, we've just furthered our commitment to using nonfiction and using content that builds knowledge. As a colleague once said to me, let's put education back into adult basic ed. How can we build knowledge of the world? We know that the more we know about the world, the easier it is to learn more. So how can we use language instruction as the first opportunity to teach students more about the world? We also teach explicitly language and learning strategies. I'll point that out. And something else that we've done in this revision is we have, in order to achieve these higher expectations and recognizing that literacy arts and English language arts take years to develop, we have intensified the whole development strand throughout the series. We have added a lot more scaffolding and made the reading more robust. And we've added writing in even to the lowest levels. So here, now let's go back. Oh golly, no, I have to tell you about how we scaffold first. Okay, so those were the higher expectations, right? The ways that we want to be able to lift the bar. But now how do we help students get there? The first and most important thing is use content-based curriculum, and to have a curriculum that provides stability. I generally, in most of my classes, have worked with lower level learners. And one thing I know for sure is that if the theme keeps changing, the topic keeps changing, the routines keep changing, a lot of the student bandwidth will be lost in trying to figure out instructions or where we're going. So by creating a lesson that has a clear objective and a clear direction and a clear scaffold, 4 steps that lead you to that, it provides a security and stability that students can really spend their user bandwidth for more learning. Always, the only way to motivate adult learners is to speak to adult learner realities, experiences, and roles. Adult learners are motivated by their roles and their responsibilities. So all the content we use is related to the responsibilities, the myriad responsibilities our adult learners have. We use multiple modalities to create memorable learning and to support meaning. And we support all activities with model language, which doesn't seem very important until you realize that that is probably the most important mini rung in the scaffolding, that students need to see somewhere the language that they're going to learn to use to move, especially into academic discourse. So let me take you back. Here we are back at the vocabulary lesson. And now I'm going to show you just kind of the leaving, or let's say the dovetailing of higher standards and the scaffolding to support those. So we start with meaningful content. Jobs, very important for our adult learners. We expose students to academic language immediately using the word predict. Now, I'm not going to expect my students in level 1 to use the word predict, but I want them to know this is a prediction exercise, and they'll know that because they will practice this again and again and see that word predict. So through their experience, they're going to understand what predict means. We use multiple modalities throughout all of the books, and we know that if you dual code, right, you use different modalities of verbal and visual, or verbal and auditory, that you will actually make more durable, memorable learning. You'll have more robust memories of your learning. So we really have tapped into that as much as possible. Oops, I have to go down here. This is the model language. Now, if you'll notice here, we actually have model language all over the page. You see, every time that we ask students to generate language, and we ask students to generate a lot of language, it's a lot less fill in the blank and a lot more students expressing and generating language. We provide model language so students can scaffold off of that. There are always some strategies that we try to make learning strategies explicit. In levels 1 and 2, particularly, we're trying to just speak to students about how to do some learning strategies that they can then take outside of the classroom to take into their own learning. And this is something that we've added now. In the Show What You Know, we always use it as a way, as for students to synthesize and extend their learning. But we realize, and the ELP has helped instruct us on this, that students really need to learn not just speaking, but actually this notion of presenting. So we have a present step in every unit where students, and here it's level 1, it's very, very simple. But just by saying, okay, you're going to present, means a student's going to stand up and speak to the class. 1, 2, 3 sentences. But it's important that we start these skills from the start and that students practice them. We always try now in this edition, what we've decided to do is to thread writing in from the beginning and to have writing outcomes at the end of lessons. And lastly, I spoke about this very briefly, but it's actually a very important thread, is we have established really concrete and measurable goals. So after students complete the Show What You Know, they can look at the statement, I can name jobs, and really truly kind of say, well, yes, or if not, we ask them to assess their confidence, and they can say, I need more practice. I've found that what I've been doing with students is you got a nice continuum bar here, and you could ask them just to mark where they feel they are, that they are totally there or they really need more practice. And that will give you feedback, and it also throws a responsibility back to the student to really reflect on, what am I learning and can I do this? I'm really briefly going to take you through this. I'm realizing how quickly time is going. Remember, I talked about the 4 parts of a structure of a lesson. You start with what the student knows, then you introduce new information, and then you provide a lot of practice that's varied and progresses in its challenge, so that people go from student starts here, gets this information, and is moved through multiple practices to a final outcome. Whoops, uh-oh. To a final outcome. I can't seem to get now. Here we go. To require students to synthesize and extend their learning. Again, if you look at this in terms of where is the higher skill expectation and where is the scaffolding to bring students up to it, we'll start right here. We have concrete and measurable goals from the start in language that students can understand. we use multiple modalities. If you'll notice here, we're using pictures, audio, print. We're using like listen for details. We have lots of academic language on this. I mean, this is really a language strategy in the notion of students tuning into details. In levels 2 and on, we talk about listening for main idea, but we don't talk about it in 1 because we don't want to muddy it too much. But we're going to scaffold up. And then we do talk about listening for details. We talk about expanding, discussing. We talk about creating new conversations, making connections, and then networking. We provide model language. We challenge students to use their critical thinking skills. You know, there are often questions of, you know, who is right, or how do you know? Why do you say that? And then we have this piece that we've always used, which I feel like is kind of supreme visual scaffolding. Not only are we providing new vocabulary here with pictures, but then we're also color coding it so that students understand where these words can be switched out. In multi-level classes, this gives you an opportunity to work with students at very, very different levels of access. And as always, we get students to demonstrate their learning. Now I'm going to turn it over to Federico, and he's going to talk about the reading.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. And reading, when we get to reading, you will see pretty much the same structure, the same scaffolding, where we start taking the students through 4 modalities or 4 components of the reading lesson. We start with the pre-reading activity, then which the pre-reading activity will be an activity that helps the students show what they already know. Then we move to a reading activity where we introduce the new information. In this case, this is about healthcare in the United States. We will do a close reading, which is to provide practice with a new information, and at the same time slightly progressives in the challenge, that is moves the students slowly up the scaffold. And then finally, they are going to summarize what they learned and show what they know. What is important for you to notice is here, can we go back to the full screen? Thank you. Let me say one thing is important. I was working with some teachers recently, and they pointed out that the language for this to be a level 1 series or level 1 book, the language of the healthcare jobs in the United States, that particular reading seems to be challenging. And it's important, I think, to understand that we look at this as a challenge, not as a level of difficulty. If the students are presented with a challenging real-life reading, yes, they may need a lot of intervention from the teacher, a lot of help, but if they are presented with something challenging and then with the proper scaffolding to reach that challenge, then they will be able to accomplish it. I want you to notice that we have not only reading paragraphs, but also reading in charts. Next one, please. So you will see that we set out the meaningful context. Everybody has had a health problem or knows about a health condition, so they can talk about something that is related to their own experience. That's how we started. We use multiple modalities to support the meaning of the show what you know, the pre-reading activity, by engaging reading, writing, speaking about it, and so forth. Then we present the reading, and if they need more, the online resources that we provide additional scaffolding for the students. And this, for example, the students get an opportunity to, before they read, show what they know, and after they read, they can also say, well, this was right, was true, or was false. See if they actually change their opinion from the beginning, from the pre-reading to the post-reading activities. Next. Here you go. We are going to teach the students by presenting specific language and learning strategies. You will see these lavender colored boxes throughout the book with academic skills that they need to learn. Then they present the reading. I want you to notice that the lines here are numbered. And this is important because one of the CCRS skills that they need to learn is to cite evidence when they are doing reading or research, to be able to analyze what they are reading. So they will be able to say something like, the activities will say, tell us what the reading is about, or tell us how many million people work as sales assistants, and which line do you find that information in? Then you have the close reading exercise where, for example, it's about citing evidence. So you will see both citing evidence and interpret. These are very specifically called out verbs that support higher learning, higher order learning. Cite evidence, number one, for example, says more than blank million people work in healthcare in the United States. What line do you find that information? A, 12, B, 15, C, 21. That's why we have numbered the lines throughout the readings so that students can go back to the text. They read it, they heard it, but now they can go back to the text, find the information that supports their answer, and that way they are practicing and at the same time reaching a higher level of learning. They have a lot of practice both within the text, the book, but also online, using the My English Lab for future series. They can go online, and they can also access the activities and the practice on the future app that they can download. So the same approach and skill development throughout the series. You will see that we are doing the same thing in speaking, in reading, and in writing. We are presenting the same scaffold. First, look at what you know, and then get new information, in this case, new reading, the central reading of the unit, and then an activity to practice, and finally an activity to summarize what they have learned. Go ahead.
Federica, I'd love to also just join in too, and also specifically these two steps of cite evidence and summarize. This is a level 1, and we do this level 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pulled all the way through, so it's the same approach and format. Level 1 is going to be tough, but actually most of the vocabulary and text they already know, but it will lead them up through. So they come back to the same type of cognitive strategy, language strategy again and again. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Basically, what Sarah just said is our instructional approach to the series is consistent. Whether you're teaching one skill or another language skill, reading or writing or listening, the instructional approach is consistent. They will see the same order of progression, that is the same scaffold will be presented time and again, so that the students, as they learn and as they move higher up the scaffold, they also become familiar with these words, with these processes to get to where they need to be. And once again, you see that box at the end, they show what you know, where they both think about what they have just read, but also we engage them in a minor way in writing, in the process of writing. Write about what you just learned. Next. And here you see, because it's important to have not only text in paragraphs or prose, but also charts. Here you have complex text presented in a chart, and some of the activities have to do with going back to the charts and citing the evidence of where the information is. They have to interpret to complete the sentences, but to do that, they have to look at the chart, and that develops their skills. And here you go, you can see better, they show what you know. It's once again challenging students to synthesize what they have learned and to engage them in a scaffolding process to write, which you will see in a moment when we talk about writing. And in writing, we always provide a model. By the way, Sarah, I don't remember if this is your slide or mine. If it's mine, yours, you can talk
Okay,
about it.
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to it, and then I'll switch it back to you for the soft skills. Hi there. Let me get this on. Great. So with writing, this was a new lesson that we added in for the lower levels. We had it in the higher levels. A few years ago in the program I was teaching in, we realized that we really needed to help our students in the higher levels understand what revision is and what language process is. The writing processes. And so we started to think about ways that we could bring that language and process into lower levels. And I wanted for us in the future to bring that too. So we start from level 1. We provide a very, very simple, we provide a very simple approach to the writing process. As always, model language is always there on the page, so students know where they're going. We set up these questions so students begin to pay attention to the structure and the organization of the model. I think that's another piece that often is missing in the lower levels, is students recognizing kind of rhetorical structure, even the simplest form of it. Then also, we added this step in to plan your writing, and just as you saw on the previous slide with show what you know in reading, we're asking the students to discuss their ideas and really develop their ideas before they sit down. We are also always addressing some kind of writing skill. Now this is level 1, so we're going to be working on really more basic, really more mechanics at this level. And then as students move up, we'll talk more about writing style. And then we added in a writing checklist that's quite specific to the lesson. And it's important for students to know in the beginning there's a writing outcome and there are clear expectations. This is not a rubric, but this is a checklist that they can look at, and they know that they want to be able to check all 3 or 4 items there. Now I'm going to pass it back over to you, all right, Federico, and to talk about soft skills and that whole strand.
Yeah, and I realize that we are very short on time, so I'm going to have to be very quick. Can you advance the slide for me? Okay. I'm going to talk briefly about soft skills in the context of employability skills. You may know this already. This is the employability skills framework, which is not part of Future, but we kept this in mind as we were developing the activities on soft skills in Future. If you're not familiar with the framework, I really invite you to look it up. It's being developed under was developed under grant by the Department of Education a few years back, and it presents the skills that students need to know: the workplace skills, the effective relationships, and the applied knowledge areas. Go online if you're not already very familiar with it and look it up. Now, within that employability skills framework, you will see a number of soft skills that employers say people need to integrate into the workplace. So in Future, level 1, and this is just level 1, you will see all of these 10 soft skills presented, and the students will have an opportunity to determine whether they are friendly and they know how to be a good listener and what it means to be a good listener, flexible, and so forth. So here you have a unit, a lesson that we have added. This is a new component of the second edition, and these are the soft skills at work. If you see here, we are meeting Freddie, that is a potentially student, a worker who says, I am a good listener. For example, I ask questions when I don't understand. So this is an example to help students understand what the soft skill is about. Then we introduce a problem that is typical in the workplace, and they have to have a solution that helps them solve the problem. And then again, because of time, I better move on. Here you have a problem, and then Freddie works out a solution, and the solution in this case includes engages his listening, and Freddie has to determine what is the right thing to do. And once again, through the mail and the app, there are supports for the student to do this. Now, something creative, innovative that we have is that the student then can show what they learned by going to the back of the book, where, well, first they go to show what you know, think about it. Are you a good listener in school? Are you a good listener at work if you're an employee? Are you a good listener at home or in the community? But then you have to, once again, write about this. So you learn a new skill, or you're thinking a new skill. We have a soft skills log in the back of the book for each unit, where they can write things like, yes, I am friendly, for example, and they write their own example of being a friendly person, or a good listener, or being flexible, and so forth. So that not only engages students in thinking about the skill, but also it engages them in writing about it. I realize that I keep somehow stopping and starting my my video. So we have very little time left. I guess no time to talk about the soft skills applications at work, but we are very, very happy to have spoken to you today. I know that I saw one question in, now there are two questions in the questions and answer. One is, what is the name and publisher of the curriculum being shown? We were showing Future English, and the publisher is Pearson. This slide should show you that. And then the second question is, what is the link for the employability skills framework? We can copy it and put it in the chat room, or here, right here. Let me copy it, and Sharon Bonnie says that she will answer this question live. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I was just saying that we would answer it, and you did, but let's put the link in the chat box.
Okay.
Because that's a report that we can actually pull after too.
Okay, I'll do that. Sarah, if you want to take it to finish and wrap it up.
Yeah, well, I want to thank COABE for reaching out to us. We gave this presentation at the COABE conference, and they followed up and asked us to share it via webinar. So we wanted to thank COABE for that. And also our supporter, our sponsor today. It's important to talk about all the materials that can support our students in learning, both within the US and internationally. So thank you very much.
Thank you both so much too. And I just wanted to turn it back over to Jill in just a minute. I wanted to let everyone know that this webinar, the recording of today and the presentation, will be online at coabe.org, and there's a resources tab up along the top. So look for that by next week, since we're heading into a weekend. And I want to just give Jill one more minute to thank everyone, and I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, sorry. I just want to say thank you all so very much for the opportunity to be with you, and I thank you, and really that was a fantastic presentation. I appreciate that so much, both Sarah and Frederico. Future is such a comprehensive and great curriculum. I find it in so many of the sites that English Discoveries is at as well. So again, thank you to everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. I hope it has been helpful.
Great. All right, everybody. We're going to sign off and say goodbye, and we'll see you on the 25th for our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.